Single black mom helped starving old driver. Hours later, the CEO appeared and said, "That's my father." The man's eyes opened slowly, watery blue and confused. When he rolled down the window, she could smell the desperation on him, that mix of fear and hunger that she knew too well. When was the last time you had to choose between helping someone and protecting yourself? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. The billionaire CEO stood in her cracked doorway at midnight, still wearing his $1,000 suit, staring at the woman who had just saved his father's life with $20. Monica's hands still smelled like the diner coffee she'd bought for a stranger, not knowing that stranger held the key to everything she'd ever wanted. What she thought was gratitude was actually the beginning of a game she didn't know she was playing, where kindness becomes currency and love becomes leverage. Have you ever helped a stranger and change your entire life? Have you ever been so broke you had to choose between helping someone else and feeding your own family? Tonight, one woman's compassion collides with a world of wealth, secrets, and betrayal. But what happens when the bridge you build with kindness becomes the very thing that could destroy you? Monica thought she was saving an old man's life that freezing Detroit night. She had no idea she was actually stepping into a war between corporate dynasties, family betrayals, and a love so dangerous it could either lift her out of poverty forever or bury her deeper than she'd ever imagined. Follow along as we discover how $20 changed two lives in ways that still shock people today. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. She had $20 to last 3 days, and she gave it all to a stranger who looked like death warmed over. Monica Williams dragged herself through the Detroit gas station parking lot after another 16-hour shift, wiping down hospital beds and emptying bedpans. Her scrubs stuck to her back with sweat. Her feet screamed inside worn-out sneakers, and her stomach had been growling for the past 4 hours. But payday wasn't until Friday, and it was only Tuesday. The broken-down Buick caught her eye because it shouldn't have been there. Same spot for 3 hours, engine ticking as it cooled, and through the cracked windshield she could see an old white man slumped over the steering wheel. Most people would have kept walking. Monica almost did. Her phone buzzed with a text from her babysitter. Kids asking when you'll be home. Marcus has a fever. $20. That's all she had until Friday. $20 to buy medicine for her 6-year-old son, groceries for breakfast, and maybe, if she was lucky, enough gas to get to work tomorrow without walking 5 miles in the cold. But something about the old man's shaking hands made her think of her grandfather, who used to tell her, "Baby girl, kindness is a seed. Plant it right, and one day it'll grow back toward you." She knocked on the car window. The man's eyes opened slowly, watery blue and confused. When he rolled down the window, she could smell the desperation on him, that mix of fear and hunger that she knew too well. "Sir, are you okay? You've been sitting here a while." His voice came out like sandpaper. "I'm fine, miss. Just resting." But his lips were pale. His hands shook worse than her grandfather's had before he passed. And when she asked when he'd last eaten, he looked away. "Yesterday morning, I think. Maybe the day before." Monica stared at him for a long moment. She thought about Marcus's fever, about the empty refrigerator at home, about the landlord who'd been calling about rent. She thought about all the times she'd been hungry, cold, invisible. Then she thought about her grandfather's words. "Come on," she said, opening his car door. "There's a diner across the street." The Detroit gas station flickered under dying neon, casting everything in sickly yellow light while wine cut through her worn coat like ice through paper. But as she helped the old man out of his car, feeling how frail he was beneath his expensive-looking coat, something warm settled in her chest. 20 minutes later, she watched Charles Turner, though she didn't know his name yet, eat like a man who'd forgotten what food tasted like. Soup, sandwich, coffee, and when she saw his grateful tears, she bought his heart medication from the pharmacy next door too. Her last $20. Gone. "God bless you, child," he whispered, gripping her hand with surprising strength. "You don't know what this means. When was the last time you had to choose between helping someone and protecting yourself? Tell me in the comments what you would have done. As she watched the old man eat, tears streaming down his weathered cheeks, she had no idea that across town, security cameras were already tracking his location and hers. The knock on her door came at midnight, not from bill collectors this time, but from a man whose presence made her apartment feel like a dollhouse. Monica had just gotten Marcus's fever down and tucked both kids in the bed they shared in their one-bedroom apartment. She was heating up leftover ramen, her dinner and tomorrow's breakfast, when 3 sharp knocks echoed through their thin walls. Her first thought was the landlord. Her second was the police. Neither option was good at midnight. Through the peephole, she saw a tall black man in what looked like a suit that cost more than her rent. Behind him stood another man, equally well-dressed, hands folded like he was used to waiting. Monica Williams? His voice carried authority even through the door. My name is David Turner. We need to talk about my father. Your father? She almost didn't open the door. Almost. But something about his tone, not threatening, not demanding, just tired, made her unlock the chain. He filled her doorway like expensive cologne fills a room. Overwhelming, unmistakably costly, and impossible to ignore. Everything about him screamed money, from his perfect haircut to the way he stood like he owned whatever space he occupied. You helped an elderly man tonight at the Shell station on 8 Mile, he said, and his voice dropped when he said her name. Charles Turner. He's my father. Monica crossed her arms, suddenly aware of her faded pajama pants and the fact that her living room contained exactly one working lamp and a couch held together with duct tape. Is he okay? He seemed real confused. He's fine now. Thanks to you. David stepped forward, not into her space, but close enough that she could smell his cologne, something that probably cost more than her monthly grocery budget. He told me what you did. About the food, the medicine. It wasn't nothing special. It was everything. The way he said it made her pulse quicken despite her mistrust. But Monica had learned the hard way that when something seemed too good to be true, it usually was. Your father wandered 20 miles from that retirement home. How does a man with dementia manage that? David's jaw tightened. He doesn't have dementia, Monica. He was running away. The words hung between them like a challenge. Behind him, his associate shifted, and Monica realized this wasn't just a thank you visit. Running from what? From us. From family. From a life that became a prison. His eyes met hers, and for a second, the controlled mask slipped. He's been trying to escape for months. Tonight was the first time he made it past the gates. Monica felt something cold settle in her stomach. What kind of family keeps a man prisoner? The kind with too much money and too many secrets. David reached into his jacket, and Monica tensed, but he only pulled out an envelope. This won't bring back what you spent tonight, but it's a start. Have you ever mistrusted someone's kindness because it felt too good to be true? Share your experience below. When he handed her an envelope thick with cash, she felt something more dangerous than gratitude. She felt the first crack in walls she'd spent years building. He didn't offer her money. He offered her something far more valuable and infinitely more dangerous. Choice. Monica stared at the envelope in her hands like it might explode. Through the paper, she could feel the thickness of more bills than she'd ever held at one time. I can't take this. Why not? Because I don't know what you want for it. David Turner studied her with eyes that missed nothing. The way she held herself ready to fight or run, the protective stance that said she'd been burned before, the pride that wouldn't let her back down even when she was clearly outmatched. What I want, he said carefully, is for you to visit my father. Regularly. As a friend, not a caretaker. He's been alone for a long time, and tonight he smiled for the first time in months. You got nurses for that. People who know what they're doing. Nurses follow medical protocols. They don't buy him dinner when he's hungry or treat him like he matters. David's voice softened. He told me you talked to him like he was human, not like he was broken. Monica's kitchen table, scarred by years of homework and unpaid bills, suddenly held more money than she'd seen in her lifetime. But something in his tone made her pause. How much money is in here? Enough to cover what you spent tonight, plus enough to make sure your son gets the medicine he needs and your rent gets paid this month. Her heart hammered. Marcus didn't need medicine. The rent was due in 2 weeks. And if she missed another payment, I don't need your pity. Good. Because what I'm offering isn't pity, it's partnership. The word hung between them, weighted with possibility and danger. Partnership in what? My father has been dying slowly in that place, not from any disease, but from loneliness, from being treated like a problem instead of a person. You gave him something tonight that all our money couldn't buy. Dignity. David leaned forward, and Monica caught herself noticing how his shirt stretched across his shoulders, how his voice dropped when he got serious. I'm not asking you to take charity. I'm asking you to take a job. Visit him twice a week. Talk to him. Treat him like the man he used to be instead of the patient everyone else sees. In exchange, I pay you what that's worth. And what's it worth? More than you're making breaking your back in that hospital. More than enough to move your kids somewhere safe. More than enough to give you choices you don't have right now. Monica's hands shook as she pushed the envelope across the table toward him, then pulled it back. The weight of it felt like possibility and trap all at once. What's the difference between help and handout? Between respect and rescue? Drop your thoughts below. The business card he left behind wasn't for his company. It was for a private investigator. Someone had been watching her long before that night at the gas station. She walked into his world carrying bus fare and wearing her best dress, not knowing she was about to discover why his father really ran away. The Turner estate sprawled behind iron gates like something from a movie. Monica pressed her face to the taxi window as they drove up the circular driveway, trying to process that people actually lived in houses with wings and fountains and enough land to hold her entire apartment complex. Her best dress was a black number she'd bought from Goodwill for job interviews, professional enough to look serious, cheap enough that she could afford it. Next to this mansion, she felt like she was playing dress up. The front door opened before she could knock. You must be Monica. The woman who answered looked like she ate nails for breakfast. White, 50s, wearing pearls like armor. I'm Mrs. Chun, the house manager. Mr. Turner is waiting in the library. The mansion sprawled like a monument to loneliness, each room more beautiful and empty than the last. Crystal chandeliers hung over furniture that looked like it belonged in museums. Everything gleamed, everything matched, everything felt cold as winter. Mrs. Chen's heels clicked against marble floors as she led Monica through hallways lined with portraits of stern-faced white men in expensive suits. None of them were smiling. Few rules, Mrs. Chun said without looking back. Mr. Charles tires easily. Don't agitate him. Don't ask about family business. Don't touch anything valuable. Which things are valuable? Everything. The library doors were 10 feet tall and heavy as church doors. When they opened, Monica stepped into a room that smelled like leather and old money. Books lined the walls from floor to ceiling, and in the center, sitting in a wheelchair by the fireplace, was Charles Turner. He looked smaller than he had in the gas station parking lot, more fragile. But when he saw her, his whole face lit up. There she is, my guardian angel. David stood beside his father's chair, and Monica felt her breath catch. In his own environment, surrounded by wealth and power, he looked different, bigger, more dangerous, like a man who was used to getting exactly what he wanted. But when their eyes met across the room, something electric passed between them. Dad's been talking about you nonstop, David said, and his voice carried that same warm tone that had made her pulse race in her kitchen. Have not, Charles protested, but his eyes twinkled. Just mentioned you once or twice. Every 5 minutes. Monica laughed despite her nerves. Well, I brought pictures of my kids if you want to see them. For the next hour, she sat beside Charles's wheelchair, showing him photos on her cracked phone screen, telling him about Marcus's fever and how her daughter Keisha was learning to read. Charles listened like every word mattered, asking questions, laughing at her stories. David watched from across the room, and every time Monica glanced his way, she caught him staring. Not at her body, not with the hungry look men usually gave her. He was watching her face, the way she talked to his father, the way she made an old man feel valuable again. He's not like the rest of them, girl, Charles whispered when David stepped out to take a phone call. His grip on her hand was surprisingly strong. But this family, it eats good people alive. Have you ever entered a world where you felt completely out of place? How did you navigate it? Share your story. The family photo on Charles's nightstand showed David with a woman and child, both crossed out with red ink. Who are they? Monica asked. Charles's answer chilled her blood. The last people who tried to love him. She came to care for his father, but found herself caring about the son, a mistake that could cost her everything. 2 weeks into her visits with Charles, Monica had fallen into a rhythm. Tuesdays and Thursdays, she'd take the bus to the Turner estate, spend 3 hours listening to stories about Charles's youth, playing cards, and pretending not to notice how David always found reasons to be in whatever room they occupied. Today was different. Today, David's entire family was coming for dinner, and Charles had insisted Monica stay to meet them. "You sure about this?" she asked Charles as Mrs. Chun fussed over his appearance. "I don't exactly fit in with your people. Honey, most of my people don't fit in with decent human beings. You'll be fine." The dining room chandelier cast fractured light across faces that barely tolerated each other, except for the two people who shouldn't be looking at each other the way they were. Monica had met David's brother Marcus twice now, and each time he'd looked at her like she was something stuck to his shoe. His wife Jennifer was worse, all fake smiles and backhanded compliments. "So Monica," Jennifer said, cutting her steak with surgical precision, "David tells us you work in healthcare. I'm a neuf-signed. How noble. And you have children, too. 6 and 8. Single mother, then." Jennifer's smile sharpened. That must be so challenging. Monica felt David tense beside her, but Charles jumped in before things could get ugly. "Monica's kids are sharp as tacks. Keisha's reading at a 5th grade level, and Marcus, the boy, not this fool here, wants to be a doctor when he grows up. Ambitious," Marcus Jr. said. "I suppose everyone needs dreams." The condescension in his voice made Monica's jaw clench. She'd heard that tone her whole life, from teachers who expected her to fail, from social workers who treated poverty like a character flaw, from people who thought being broke meant being broken. "Must be nice," she said quietly. "Growing up knowing your dreams don't depend on whether you can afford them." The table went silent. Jennifer recovered first. "Of course, we're very fortunate. But surely you understand that opportunities have to be earned." "I've been earning since I was 14, Monica shot back. "Working 2 jobs to help my mom pay rent, studying by streetlight when the power got shut off, walking to school when we couldn't afford bus fare. What exactly do you think I haven't earned?" David's hand found hers under the table, warm and steady. When she looked at him, his eyes held something she'd never seen before: pride. "Monica puts in more honest work in a week than some people do in a year," David said, his voice carrying enough ice to freeze hell. "She's also shown more kindness to Dad in a month than this family has in years." Marcus Jr. stood so fast his chair scraped against marble. "That's enough. We don't need lectures from." "From what?" David's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow filled the room. "Finish that sentence, Marcus. I dare you. When attraction feels dangerous, do you run toward it or away? What would you do if Karen could cost you everything?" After dinner, as the family filed out with barely concealed hostility, David walked Monica to the front door. The space between them crackled with tension that had been building for weeks. "I'm sorry about them," he said. "Don't apologize for being rich. Apologize for being related to people who think money makes them better than everyone else." "And what about me? Do you think I think that?" Monica studied his face in the porch light. "I think you're trying real hard not to." Sarah's lawyer called that night with an ultimatum. Any woman in David's life would be investigated, exposed, destroyed. Monica's kindness had just painted a target on her back. She showed up at his penthouse, soaked from rain and fury, not for money or safety, but because some lines, once crossed, change you forever. The call came at 11 p.m. while Monica was helping Keisha with her homework. A voice she didn't recognize, cold and professional like a doctor delivering bad news. "Ms. Williams? This is Principal Rodriguez from Marcus Elementary. There's been an incident with your son." Monica's blood turned to ice. "What kind of incident?" 3 men came to the school today, asking about Marcus. They had cameras, claimed to be journalists. They were asking other children questions about your relationship with wealthy men. The phone slipped from Monica's hands. By the time she got to the school, Marcus was sitting in the principal's office, small and confused. The principal explained how the men had shown up during recess, approaching kids on the playground, offering candy for information about Marcus's mom and her rich boyfriend. They didn't get near him, Principal Rodriguez assured her. But Monica, this isn't normal. Someone's targeting your family. Monica held her son tight, feeling his small body shake against hers. He didn't understand what was happening, but he knew some. No, baby, you didn't do nothing wrong. But as she took Marcus and Keisha home that night, checking over her shoulder every few blocks, Monica knew exactly who was behind this. The question was what she was going to do about it. The rain started just as she put the kids to bed. By midnight, it was coming down like the world was ending, turning the streets into rivers and her cheap umbrella into a joke. She stood outside David's building for 10 minutes, water soaking through her coat, second-guessing herself. The doorman kept looking at her through the glass like she was crazy. Maybe she was. His penthouse windows streaked with rain like tears down glass. The city spread below like scattered diamonds on black velvet. But he wasn't looking at the view worth millions. He was looking at her like she was priceless. Monica! David opened the door in a t-shirt and sweatpants, hair messy like he'd been running his hands through it. What are you? You're soaked. They came after my kids. Her voice came out flat, deadly calm. Your ex-wife sent people to my son's school. David's face went dark. What? 3 men with cameras, asking 6-year-olds about their mommy's rich boyfriend, offering them candy for information. Monica stepped into his apartment, dripping water on marble floors that probably cost more than her car. You want to tell me what I got myself into? David closed the door and turned to face her, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked scared. Sarah's trying to prove you're with me for money. If she can show I have a pattern of relationships with women from certain backgrounds, she thinks she can get custody of Tyler back. Your son, my son. Pain flashed across his face. She took him 2 years ago, claimed I was an unfit father because of my lifestyle choices. Monica stared at him, rain still dripping from her hair. And what lifestyle choices were those? I helped my assistant pay for her daughter's surgery. Sarah's lawyer made it look like I was having an affair, buying favors with money. David stepped closer, close enough that she could see water droplets on her skin reflecting the city lights. Sarah destroyed that woman's reputation, got her fired, made sure she couldn't find work anywhere in the city. And now she's coming for me. Now she's coming for you. The space between them felt electric, charged with more than just the storm outside. Monica could feel the heat radiating off his skin, could smell his cologne mixed with something that was just him. I should go, she whispered. You should stay. When he reached up to touch her face, his fingers came away wet, but neither of them was sure if it was from the rain or tears. Have you ever wanted someone so badly it scared you? When fear and desire collide, what wins? Tell me in the comments. As they lay tangled in Egyptian cotton sheets afterward, his phone buzzed with a message that made his blood freeze. A photo of her children walking to school, with coordinates and a timestamp from that morning. Love became a weapon the moment someone decided to use her heart against him, but they underestimated a mother's fury. Monica woke up in David's bed to the sound of him arguing with someone on the phone. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, and for a moment she forgot where she was, forgot why she was there. Then reality crashed back. I don't care what it costs, David was saying, pacing naked across the bedroom like a caged animal. I want security on her building, on her kids' school, on every route she takes to work. 24 hours. Monica sat up, pulling the sheet around herself. David, he held up one finger, still talking. And I want to know everything about the men who approached that school. Everything. Bank records, phone calls, what they had for breakfast yesterday. When he hung up, Monica was already getting dressed. Where are you going? Home. To my kids. To my real life. She pulled her still damp dress over her head, trying to ignore how his eyes followed every movement. This was a mistake. Last night was not a mistake. Last night was me being scared and stupid and what? David caught her wrist as she reached for her shoes. And letting yourself feel something real for the first time. Monica yanked away from him. Don't you dare tell me what I feel. Then tell me yourself. Tell me last night meant nothing. She wanted to. The words were right there, ready to build her walls back up, ready to protect her from whatever this was becoming. But when she looked at him, hair messy from her fingers, skin marked with proof of their night together, she couldn't lie. It doesn't matter what it meant. Your crazy ex-wife is taking pictures of my children. My children, David. The security briefing felt like preparing for war. Cameras, guards, safe houses. Turning her simple life into a fortress because love had made her target. David had moved them to a conference room in his office building, complete with maps and photos and men in suits who talked about threat assessment like it was weather. The school will have 2 guards posted, one of them explained. Unmarked cars, trained professionals. Your children won't even know they're there. And my apartment? We've already installed cameras in the hallway and posted someone across the street. Monica felt sick. This is insane. I can't live like this. You won't have to live like this long, David said. I'm going to end this. Ow! By giving Sarah what she wants. Monica's heart stopped, which is me out of Tyler's life. Permanently. The room went quiet. Monica stared at David like she'd never seen him before. You're going to give up your son? I'm going to do whatever it takes to keep you and your kids safe. No. Monica stood up so fast her chair fell over. No, you're not giving up your child for me. That's not love, David. That's stupidity. Sarah has unlimited resources and no conscience. She'll destroy you just to hurt me. Then let her try. Monica's voice went deadly quiet. I've been poor my whole life. I've been looked down on, talked about, counted out more times than I can remember. But I'm still here, and I'm not running from some bitter woman who thinks money can buy her whatever she wants. When the phone rang, David's face went white after he answered. What is it? Monica asked. David hung up slowly. Sarah's lawyer. They filed a motion to have your children removed from your custody, claiming you're exposing them to dangerous criminal elements. How far would you go to protect the people you love? When someone threatens your family, how do you fight back? The envelope delivered to her job the next day contained photos of her and David together, along with a contract offering her $5 million to disappear, signed by someone she never expected. The signature on the contract belonged to the one person she'd trusted completely, proving that in the game of power, even family can be bought. Monica stared at the signature until the letters blurred together. Charles Turner, the old man she'd fed, the grandfather figure who'd held her hand and called her his guardian angel, had just offered her $5 million to walk away from his son. Her supervisor knocked on the break room door. Monica, you okay in there? You've been staring at that paper for 20 minutes. I'm fine, Mrs. Patterson. Just reading some legal stuff. But she wasn't fine. Her hand shook as she read the contract again. $5 million to cease all contact with the Turner family and relocate outside the state of Michigan. Signed in shaky handwriting that she'd recognize anywhere. The betrayal hit harder than David's family dinner insults, harder than Sarah's threats. Charles was supposed to be different. He was supposed to be the one person in that cold mansion who actually cared about her. Her phone buzzed with a text from David. Emergency board meeting. Can't get away until tonight. How are you holding up? She almost told him. Almost sent a picture of the contract and let him deal with his own family's treachery. But something stopped her. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was the need to hear Charles explain himself before she destroyed whatever was left between David and his father. Maybe it was because she wanted to look the old man in the eye when she told him exactly what he could do with his money. The Turner estate felt different when she walked through those front doors. The marble floors seemed colder, the portraits on the walls more judgmental. Mrs. Chun barely looked at her when she announced herself. He's in the library. As usual, Charles was sitting by the fireplace, staring into flames that cast shadows across his weathered face. When he heard her footsteps, he didn't turn around. I was wondering when you'd come. Monica pulled the contract from her purse and dropped it on the table beside his chair. $5 million. That's what you think it'll take to make me disappear. Charles finally looked at her, and his eyes held more sadness than she'd ever seen in one person. It's not about making you disappear, child. It's about keeping you alive. What's that supposed to mean? Sit down, please. Monica remained standing, arms crossed. I'll stand. Talk. Charles sighed like a man carrying the weight of the world. Sarah didn't just take David's son, Monica. She destroyed the last woman who tried to love him. Jessica Manning, a teacher from Detroit. Sweet girl, reminded me a lot of you. Monica's stomach dropped. What happened to her? Sarah hired people to plant drugs in her apartment, then called the police. Jessica lost her job, her teaching license, everything. Last I heard, she was living in a shelter in Chicago, too scared to use her real name. The room felt like it was spinning. And you think she'll do the same thing to me? I think she'll do worse. Charles's voice broke. Because this time, she's not just trying to remove competition. She's trying to prove David is unfit to be a father, which means she needs you to be more than ruined. She needs you to be criminal. Monica sank into the chair across from him, legs suddenly unsteady. The school incident was just the beginning, Charles continued. Next comes planted evidence. False witnesses. Maybe an anonymous tip about drugs in your apartment when your children are home. And you think paying me to leave will stop her? I think it's the only way to keep you and your babies safe. The boardroom stretched like a battlefield. Mahogany and marble witnesses to the destruction of bloodlines and the birth of unlikely alliances. When David arrived an hour later, he found Monica and his father in heated conversation. Have you ever discovered someone you trusted was working against you? How did you handle that betrayal? Share your experience. Charles Turner's hospital bed held more than medical equipment. Hidden underneath was a safe containing documents that would change everything about the Turner family fortune. The family's secret wasn't about money. It was about murder, and Charles Turner had been protecting his son from the truth for 30 years. The heart attack came 3 days after their confrontation in the library. Monica was at work when David called, his voice tight with panic she'd never heard before. Dad's in the hospital. It's bad, Monica. Really bad. She found him in the cardiac ICU waiting room, still wearing yesterday's clothes, eyes red from exhaustion and fear. When she walked through the door, he collapsed into her arms like a man who'd been holding up the world. The doctors say it was massive. They don't know if he's going to make it. Monica held him while he broke apart. This powerful man reduced to a scared little boy who might lose the only family member who'd ever loved him. He's stronger than he looks, she whispered into his hair. Remember, this is the man who walked 20 miles to escape that retirement home. David laughed through his tears. He did, didn't he? Stubborn old fool. They spent the next 18 hours taking shifts by Charles's bedside, watching machines keep him alive while his body fought to hold on. Monica had never seen someone look so small, so fragile. But even unconscious, Charles Turner had a grip that could break bones. When he finally opened his eyes, the first word out of his mouth was documents. Dad, don't try to talk. You need to rest. No time. Charles's voice came out like gravel, barely a whisper. Monica, the safe. Under the bed. Get the safe. Monica looked at David, who shrugged. He's been talking about some safe since the ambulance picked him up. Hospital machines beeped like a countdown, while Charles's weathered hands held documents that could destroy empires or set his son free. The safe was small, fireproof, and heavy enough that Monica needed David's help to lift it onto Charles's hospital bed. Inside were papers yellow with age, photographs, and a stack of letters tied with a blue ribbon. David, Charles whispered, you need to know the truth about your father. You are my father. No, son, I'm not. The words hit the room like a physical blow. Monica watched David's face go through confusion, denial, then something that looked like relief. What are you talking about? Charles's shaking hands found a birth certificate in the pile of papers. Richard Turner was your biological father. My business partner, my best friend. The man I helped murder 30 years ago. David went white. What? He discovered what the company was really doing. Money laundering, illegal contracts, bribes that went all the way up to city government. Richard wanted to go to the FBI, wanted to come clean. Tears leaked from Charles's eyes. The board couldn't let that happen. Monica felt sick. So they killed him? Made it look like a heart attack. I signed the papers, agreed to raise you as my own, kept my mouth shut for 30 years. Charles gripped David's hand with surprising strength. Everything you inherited, son belongs to you by right. But it's built on blood money. The revelation that followed was worse than murder. David's biological father had been Charles's business partner, murdered for opposing illegal practices. David inherited everything through deception. David stared at the papers spread across the hospital bed like they were written in a foreign language. So everything I am, everything I've built, is yours by birthright, Charles interrupted. Richard Turner was a good man, David. He would have been proud of the man you became. And Sarah knows this? Charles nodded weakly. She's been using it as leverage for years, threatening to expose the whole thing if I don't give her what she wants. Monica's mind raced. That's why she's so confident. She thinks she has you trapped. She does have us trapped. David's voice was hollow. If this comes out, it doesn't just destroy me. It destroys everyone who worked for the company, everyone who benefited from contracts we secured through bribes. Or, Monica said quietly, it sets you free. Both men looked at her like she'd lost her mind. What if you're the one who exposes it? What if instead of being the victim of this secret, you're the hero who brings justice? If you discovered your entire life was built on lies, what would matter most to you? What would you hold on to? Como bilo? Sarah's final move wasn't legal. It was lethal. The car bomb was meant for David, but Monica's children were in the back seat. They took the wrong mother's children. Now hell hath no fury like a Detroit woman with nothing left to lose. The explosion happened at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. Monica was picking up Marcus and Keisha from their after-school program when the world went white, then black, then red with rage so pure it could have powered the city. The bomb wasn't meant for her old Honda. It was meant for David's Mercedes, which should have been parked in that exact spot. But David had insisted on extra security, had switched cars at the last minute, had taken every precaution except the one that mattered. He hadn't expected Sarah to target the children. Monica woke up in Detroit General with her ears ringing and David's face hovering over hers like a prayer answered. Behind him, she could see Marcus and Keisha in the next bed, bandaged but breathing, alive but changed forever. How bad, she asked. Concussion for you. Some cuts and bruises for the kids. Could have been so much worse. David's hands shook as he touched her face. Monica, I'm so sorry. This is my fault. All of it. Where is she? Sarah? The FBI is looking for her. She disappeared after. I don't care about the FBI. Monica sat up despite the room spinning around her. I asked you where she is. Something in her voice made David step back. The woman in that hospital bed wasn't the same person who'd fed a stranger at a gas station, wasn't the same person who'd been intimidated by mansion dining rooms and family wealth. This woman was forged in Detroit steel and tempered by a mother's fury. Monica, you need a rest. Let me handle this. Handle it. Monica's laugh was sharp enough to cut glass. Baby, your way of handling things got my children blown up. Now we do this my way. The command center in his penthouse hummed with technology and determination. Screens showing traffic cameras, phones connecting with contact from Wall Street to the streets. David had money, lawyers, connections that reached into every corner of power. But Monica had something Sarah hadn't counted on. She had friends in places money couldn't reach. Ray, I need you to put the word out, Monica said into her phone while David coordinated with the security team. White woman, late 30s, probably got fake ID, lots of cash. She's hiding somewhere in the city. Ray had grown up 3 blocks from Monica, had spent more time in county than out, but he knew Detroit like most people knew their own heartbeat. What's it worth to you, Mo? She hurt my babies, Ray. That make it worth anything to you. Say no more. I'll have 50 pairs of eyes looking within the hour. David watched this transformation with something between admiration and terror. The woman he'd fallen in love with had been kind, careful, defensive. This woman was a warrior. She's holed up in a warehouse on the east side. Monica announced 2 hours later, hanging up from her 4th Street contact. Abandoned auto plant. Thinks she's smart hiding where cops don't like to go. Monica, we call the police now. We let them handle this. The police didn't have their children in that car. Monica checked the gun David's security chief had given her, surprised by how natural it felt in her hands. The police aren't the ones who've been hunted, threatened, blown up. You can't just walk in there and... Watch me. David grabbed her arm. I won't let you do this alone. Monica looked at him for a long moment, seeing past the expensive clothes and perfect hair to the man underneath. The man who'd respected her strength, who'd never tried to rescue her, who'd stood beside her instead of in front of her. Then don't let me do it alone. The warehouse district stretched out like a graveyard of American manufacturing, all broken windows and rusted dreams. But somewhere in that maze of abandoned buildings, Sarah was waiting. When someone threatens what matters most to you, do you negotiate or do you go to war? What's your breaking point? They found Sarah's hideout, but it was empty except for a live stream camera and her voice echoing through speakers. Choose, David. Save Monica or save her children. You have 10 minutes. 10 minutes to save 2 lives when you can only. The voice echoed through the empty warehouse like a ghost with a grudge. Sarah's laughter bounced off rusted steel and broken dreams while David stood frozen, staring at 2 addresses displayed on the live stream screen. Address 1, your precious Monica, tied up in the old Fisher body plant. Address 2, her children, locked in a basement on Gresham Avenue. Choose wisely, David. Traffic's heavy this time of day. Monica felt ice water replace the blood in her veins. Marcus and Keisha were supposed to be at the hospital, protected by guards, safe behind bulletproof glass. How did she get them? David's hands shook as he pulled out his phone, calling the hospital security. The answer came back in words that hit like physical blows. Shift change confusion, fake nurse identification, children transferred for additional tests that never existed. 7 minutes left, David. Sarah's voice sing-songed through the speakers. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Who matters more? Monica grabbed David's arm, forcing him to look at her instead of the countdown timer on screen. Listen to me. You go get my babies. Right now. I'm not leaving you. You are because that's what smart people do. She wants you to choose between us, but I'm not giving her that power. Monica! David Turner, you look at me. Her voice cut through his panic like a blade through silk. I grew up in these streets. I know every shortcut, every hiding spot, every person who owes me a favor. She thinks she's got me trapped, but she picked the wrong neighborhood to play games in. David stared at her like she was speaking another language. You can't take on Sarah alone. Watch me. Monica was already moving, pulling out her phone, speed dialing numbers programmed from memory. Tina, it's Monica. I need the Gresham Avenue boys at the old Kelsey building. Right now. Yeah, it's that serious. Tell them a white lady stole children from Detroit mothers. See how fast they move. While she coordinated street-level backup, David wrestled with a choice no parent should face. Save the woman he loved or save her children. Except Monica wasn't asking to be saved. 5 minutes. Sarah's voice crackled through deteriorating speakers. Go, Monica said, pushing David toward the exit. My kids need their mother alive, not their mother's boyfriend playing hero. Get them out of there. And then what? Then you trust that a woman who survived 28 years in Detroit can handle one crazy ex-wife with money. The kiss lasted 3 seconds, desperate and fierce, tasting like promises they might not get to keep. If you die, David whispered against her lips, I'll never forgive you. If my kids die because you stayed here trying to save me, I'll never forgive you either. 2 minutes after David's car disappeared into Detroit traffic, Monica heard the rumble of motorcycles approaching. The Gresham Avenue boys weren't gang members exactly, but they weren't choir boys either. They were Detroit men who remembered when neighborhoods looked after their own. Montag. Big Terry's voice boomed through the warehouse as 6 motorcycles roared through the open loading dock. Heard some fool got your babies. Where they at? Monica climbed onto the back of Terry's bike, feeling the familiar thrill of Detroit-style justice about to be served. Kelsey building basement. And boys, the lady who took them also tried to blow up their mother. 6 engines revved in response. Nothing needed to be said about what happened to people who hurt Detroit children. Meanwhile, across town, David raced through traffic with a police escort, every red light an eternity, every slow driver an obstacle between him and 2 small lives that had become his whole world. The warehouse Sarah had chosen for a final game echoed with emptiness. But the building next door hummed with the sound of an entire neighborhood mobilizing to protect their own. Have you ever had to trust others to save what matters most to you? When seconds count and distance divides, who do you call? Sarah's mistake wasn't underestimating Monica's courage. It was underestimating Detroit's loyalty. The cavalry didn't wear badges or carry official authority. They carried something more dangerous, the fury of a community protecting its children. Sarah planned for money and lawyers and police procedures. She never planned for a city that protects its own with motorcycle clubs and street justice. The Kelsey building stood like a monument to Detroit's industrial death, all broken windows and rusted fire escapes. But the basement lights were on, and two small voices echoed up through ventilation shafts. Marcus? Keisha. Monica called down through a grate in the alley. Mama. Keisha's voice shot back, high and scared but strong. The lady said you were dead. Baby girl, your mama's harder to kill than that. You and your brother stay away from the door. You hear me? Big Terry positioned his crew around the building's exits, while Monica studied the basement layout through cracked foundation windows. Sarah wasn't down there. This was just the cage, not the trap. Building's got 3 ways out, Terry reported. Front door, loading dock, and emergency exit. But M.O., that basement door's steel. We're gonna need. The explosion came from inside the building, controlled and precise. Not enough to hurt the children, just enough to send a message that Sarah could end this whenever she wanted. Change of plans. Sarah's voice crackled through a bullhorn from somewhere above them. Your boyfriend took too long. The kids stay down there until Monica comes upstairs. Alone. Terry grabbed Monica's arm. Don't even think about it. She's got my babies, Terry. And she's got you outnumbered, outgunned, and crazy enough to kill children to prove a point. Terry's voice carried the authority of someone who'd seen real violence, not movie violence. This ain't about being brave, M.O. This is about being smart. Monica looked up at the building's broken facade, calculating odds and distances and how many ways Sarah could kill her before help arrived. Then she heard Marcus crying. Her son, brave, smart Marcus, who wanted to be a doctor when he grew up, was crying because some rich woman's revenge had turned him into a weapon against his mother. Terry, you ever see a mama bear when someone threatens her cubs? Yeah, and I seen what happens to the fools who get in her way. Then you know Sarah picked the wrong mama to mess with. What Monica did next wasn't in any security manual or police procedure. She walked to the building's front door, stood directly under the windows where Sarah was hiding, and started talking loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. My name is Monica Williams. I'm a Detroit mother, born and raised. Some crazy white lady from the suburbs thinks she can come into my city and steal my children. Windows started opening in surrounding buildings. Porches filled with people. Detroit had 2 things in abundance, poverty and pride, and both were about to be weaponized. This lady thinks money makes her untouchable, thinks she can blow up cars with kids inside, thinks she can terrorize mothers and children because she's got lawyers and bank accounts. More people emerged from buildings that looked abandoned but weren't. Detroit was full of ghosts that turned out to be very much alive when their neighbors needed them. But here's what she don't understand about Detroit. Monica's voice carried like a revival preacher's. We don't leave our own behind. We don't let outsiders hurt our children. And we sure don't let suburban princesses come in here acting like they own the place. By the time she finished talking, 50 people surrounded the building. Not protesters or activists, just neighbors who'd heard enough. Sarah's voice came through a broken window, no bullhorn needed. Very inspiring, Monica, but all these people can't save your children from. The gunshot that cut her off didn't come from inside the building. David appeared at the end of the alley, smoking gun in his hand, Sarah's bullhorn sparking on the pavement beside him. Sniper on the roof across the street, he called out calmly. Sarah's not the only one who can plan ahead. The basement door opened with a sound like thunder, and Marcus and Keisha ran into their mother's arms like she was home base in a game of life and death. When a community decides someone has crossed the line, money becomes worthless and connections become meaningless. What matters most when everything falls apart? Sarah Turner's body was found 3 blocks away, no identification, no witnesses, no questions asked. Detroit had closed ranks around its own, and some stories end with justice, not law. The truth about Charles Turner's safe wasn't just family secrets. It was evidence that could topple governments and free an entire city from decades of corruption. 3 days after Sarah's funeral, Monica sat in Charles Turner's hospital room watching him sort through documents that could rewrite Michigan's political history. His heart attack had been massive, but his mind was sharp as ever, and his hands steady as he separated papers into piles marked FBI, IRS, and media. 30 years of evidence, Charles said, his voice still weak but determined. Every bribe, every fixed contract, every politician who sold Detroit for campaign contributions. David paced by the window, still processing everything that had changed in the span of a week. His father wasn't his father. His inheritance was built on blood money. His ex-wife was dead, and his son would be coming home. If we release all this, David said, we destroy everything. The company, the foundation, the jobs. The corruption, Monica interrupted. You also destroy the corruption that's been bleeding this city dry for decades. Charles smiled at her from his hospital bed. That's why I wanted you in our family, child. You see past the comfortable lies to the truth that needs telling. The documents spread across his bed told a story of systematic destruction. Environmental contracts awarded to companies that dumped poison in Detroit's water supply. Construction projects that used substandard materials in schools and hospitals. Police department budgets diverted to private security for wealthy suburbs. Your real father, Richard Turner, died because he was going to expose all this, Charles continued. He had copies made, evidence gathered, witnesses lined up. When the board killed him, they thought they'd buried the truth with him. But you kept copies. I kept everything. 30 years of insurance, waiting for the right moment. Charles's eyes found David's across the room. I thought that moment would be when Sarah pushed too far. I never expected it would be when my son found a woman brave enough to fight beside him instead of behind him. Monica studied the photographs mixed in with the legal documents. Politicians she recognized from news broadcasts, shaking hands with men in expensive suits. Construction sites where children played, not knowing the ground beneath them was poisoned. Hospital wings built with steel that wouldn't survive the first earthquake. This isn't just about your family, she said quietly. This is about every family in Detroit who got sick from poison water. Every kid who went to schools built with materials that made them sick. Every mother who lost children to violence that could have been prevented if police budgets hadn't been stolen. The weight of responsibility settled over the room like smoke. They weren't just deciding the fate of the Turner family fortune. They were deciding the fate of an entire city. David stopped pacing and sat beside Monica's chair. If we do this, we lose everything. And if we don't, we keep everything we never deserved while people continue to suffer for our comfort. I built that company into something legitimate. Thousands of people depend on those jobs. Thousands more people died because of the foundation those jobs were built on. Monica shot back. You can rebuild something legitimate. You can't resurrect the dead. Charles watched his son and the woman who'd become like a daughter to him wrestle with choices that had no easy answers. There's a third option, he said finally. Both of them turned to look at him. We release everything, but we do it smart. Give the FBI time to build cases. Give honest politicians time to distance themselves from the corrupt ones. Give the media time to tell the story right. Charles's voice gained strength as he talked. And we use what's left of the Turner fortune to make things right. Ow! Clean water systems for affected neighborhoods. New schools built with materials that won't poison children. Health care for families who got sick from our family's crimes. Charles gripped Monica's hand, turned blood money into healing money. Monica felt something shift in her chest, a lightness she hadn't felt since she was a child, believing the world could be fair if enough good people tried hard enough. It won't be enough, she said. Money can't fix everything we broke. No, Charles agreed. But it's a start. David looked out the hospital window at the Detroit skyline, seeing it differently now. Not as a city that needed saving, but as a city that deserved justice. When you discover your wealth came from others' suffering, do you protect what you have or risk everything to make it right? What would you sacrifice for justice? The press conference was scheduled for Monday morning. By Sunday night, 3 FBI agents were dead, and someone had put a bounty on Monica's head large enough to buy a mansion. The FBI agents died because someone leaked their investigation 24 hours before it went public, and that someone had access to information only 4 people possessed. Monica stood in David's penthouse at 4 a.m. Sunday morning, staring at crime scene photos that made her stomach turn inside out. 3 federal agents, ambushed in their cars, executed with professional precision. All 3 had been part of the team preparing to raid Turner Industries Monday morning. Someone told them, David said, his voice hollow as he paced behind the couch where she sat. Someone with access to federal investigation details. Who knew about the Monday raid besides us? FBI Director Chun, the 3 agents who died, and whoever they reported to in Washington. David stopped pacing. And whoever's been feeding information to the people we're about to expose. Monica's phone buzzed with a text from a number she didn't recognize. $5 million for the Detroit woman's location. Cash, no questions asked. She showed David the message. His face went white. They're not just trying to stop the investigation. They're trying to eliminate witnesses. Good thing I'm harder to eliminate than they think. The penthouse windows rattled as helicopters circled overhead. Police, news media, or something worse, impossible to tell in the pre-dawn darkness. Charles had been moved to a secure wing of the hospital, but even there, Monica didn't trust his safety. Too many people had access, too many opportunities for accidents that weren't accidents. We accelerate the timeline, Monica said, standing up and walking to David's desk. If they want to play dirty, we play dirtier. What do you mean? I mean, we don't wait for FBI investigations or proper legal procedures. Monica started gathering the copied documents from Charles's safe. We release everything today. Right now. Every document, every photograph, every piece of evidence. Put it all online where it can't be buried or burned. David stared at her like she'd suggested they burn down the city. Monica, that's not how this works. There are procedures, legal protocols. 3 federal agents are dead, David. Your father's in the hospital with a target on his back, and someone just offered $5 million for my location. Monica's voice cut through his objections like a sword through silk. Legal protocols didn't keep those agents alive. Legal protocols won't keep us alive either. The truth hit both of them at the same time, reflected in the other's eyes like a mirror showing something terrible. The leak came from inside the FBI, David said slowly. Someone high enough up to know operational details, someone with access to case files and raid schedules. Someone who's been protecting Detroit's corruption for 30 years. Monica's phone rang. The caller ID showed her babysitter's number, but the voice that answered wasn't familiar. Ms. Williams? This is Detective Rodriguez, Detroit Police. We have your children in protective custody. Monica's blood turned to ice water. What happened to Mrs. Patterson? She's fine, just shaken up. 3 men broke into your apartment an hour ago, armed and looking for information about your whereabouts. Your babysitter called police, we responded, and we moved your children to a safe location as a precaution. Where? I can't discuss that over the phone, but I can tell you they're safe, and they want to talk to their mother. The line went quiet for a moment. Then Marcus's voice came through, small and scared. Mama, some men were looking for you. They had guns. Monica closed her eyes, feeling rage build in her chest like steam in a pressure cooker. Baby, you and your sister stay with the police officers, okay? Mama's going to fix this. When can we come home? Soon, baby. Real soon. After she hung up, the penthouse fell silent except for the sound of helicopters and David's ragged breathing. They're using children as leverage, Monica said, her voice deadly calm. They threatened federal agents, they're targeting witnesses, and now they're terrorizing kids to get to us. Monica! No, she cut him off, gathering more documents. No more playing by rules that only protect people with money and power. No more waiting for systems that were designed to keep corruption hidden. She walked to David's computer, fingers flying over the keyboard with purpose that left no room for argument. When corruption reaches into the highest levels of law enforcement, who can you trust? When children become targets, how far do you go for justice? The live stream went online at 5:17 a.m., broadcasting from every social media platform simultaneously. By 5:30, 3 million people were watching Monica Williams read corruption documents live on camera, while sirens wailed outside David Turner's penthouse windows. 6 months later, Monica stood in the same gas station where everything began, but now she owned it, along with enough power to rebuild a city that had almost broken her. The Turner Industries corruption scandal had taken down 2 senators, a governor, and half the Detroit police brass. The FBI investigation that followed exposed 30 years of systematic theft from public funds, environmental poisoning, and construction fraud that had cost thousands of lives. Monica's live-stream document release had forced every major news network to cover the story, making it impossible to bury or downplay. Within hours, protesters surrounded government buildings, demanding answers and arrests. The legal settlement had been unprecedented, $3 billion in restitution to Detroit families affected by the corruption, plus complete restructuring of city contracts and oversight boards. But the real change wasn't in the money. It was in the woman who now walked through her old neighborhood in designer clothes that she'd earned, not been given. "Mama, can we get slushies?" Keisha asked, pulling on Monica's hand as they walked toward the same gas station where she'd first met Charles Turner. "Course, baby girl." Marcus ran ahead to hold the door open, a 10-year-old gentleman who still wanted to be a doctor when he grew up, but now had college funds and tutors and every opportunity he dreamed of. The gas station was cleaner now, safer, with new lights and security cameras and a staff that knew every regular customer by name. Monica had bought the building 6 months ago, not as an investment, but as a symbol. Behind the counter, the same clerk who'd worked there the night she'd helped Charles rang up their slushies. "You ever think that old man you helped would turn out to be connected to all this craziness?" he asked, grinning. "I just thought he looked hungry," Monica replied. "Turns out feeding hungry people can change the whole world." David emerged from the office in the back, wearing jeans and a Detroit Lions t-shirt instead of $1,000 suits. Running a chain of community-owned gas stations and grocery stores wasn't as glamorous as running Turner Industries, but his smile was real now, not polished. "How'd the city council meeting go?" he asked, kissing Monica's cheek. They approved funding for the new water treatment plant and the community health center. Monica leaned into his embrace, still amazed that love could feel safe instead of dangerous. Plus, they want to rename the children's wing at Detroit General the Charles Turner Memorial Wing. David's father had passed away 3 weeks after their press conference, surrounded by family and Detroit news cameras documenting his final statement about corporate responsibility and personal redemption. His funeral had drawn thousands of people, including families whose children had been saved by the medical improvements his confession had made possible. He would have loved that, David said quietly, though he probably would have complained about them using his full name instead of just Charlie. Tyler, David's son, burst through the gas station doors with the energy of a 12-year-old who'd spent too long sitting in a courtroom. The custody case had been resolved quickly once Sarah was no longer alive to contest it, but the boy still carried scars from years of being used as a weapon between his parents. "Mom, Monica," he called out, using the name that had stuck despite Monica's protest that she wasn't trying to replace anyone. "Can Marcus and Keisha come to my robotics competition next week? If their homework's done and they promise not to embarrass you when your robot wins," Monica replied, ruffling his hair. Tyler grinned and ran off to find Marcus, and Monica watched him go with the satisfaction of seeing a child learn that love didn't have to be earned or defended. The 4 of them walked home through neighborhoods that were slowly healing, past construction sites where new schools were being built with materials that wouldn't poison anyone, past community gardens growing in lots that had been empty for decades. "You ever wonder what would have happened if you'd kept walking that night?" David asked as they climbed the steps to their house. Not a mansion, but a home with enough bedrooms for everyone and a front porch where neighbors stopped by to talk. "I don't wonder," Monica said, unlocking the front door. "I know exactly what would have happened." A lonely old man would have died in a gas station parking lot, and none of us would have learned that kindness is the bridge between who we are and who we could become. Sometimes $20 can buy more than food. It can buy justice, love, and the chance to rebuild an entire city. Have you ever helped a stranger? You never know whose life you might change, including your own. As they settled in for dinner, Monica's phone buzzed with a message from the Detroit Community Foundation. New family in crisis needs help with medical bills. Interested in making a difference? Monica smiled and started typing her response. The bridge of kindness was still under construction, and there was always more work to be done.